Tell me when you're ready. Okay, let me put my glasses on. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 6 for the Millionaire Success Calls with Jeffrey Combs. And I'm going to introduce Jeff. Jeff is a renowned author, speaker, and success coach and addiction coach who specializes in separating feelings from past events in a process called letting go. Jeff started his business Golden Mastermind Seminars 23 years ago in 1998, and since then has coached over 14,000 clients and 70,000 one-on-one hours. I was a client of Jeff. I am currently a client of Jeff. I highly endorse Jeff and recommend him. Many of the successful leaders that we all look up to in HB team have worked with Jeff one-on-one. Jeff has published 5 books, including a #1 on Amazon's best-selling list, and has been featured on social media publications, magazines, radio, Fox, ABC, CBS, and Lifetime. And Jeff is available, like I said, for one-on-one coaching, as well as keynote speeches, podcasts, Zooms, and Facebook Live. Jeff, I'm so excited for your call tonight, and I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Desiree. An honor to be here with you this evening. We have a little freeze frame here. Looks like we froze. Good. Okay, we're back. So it is an honor to be here with you this evening, and it is an honor also to see so many familiar faces going back to 2011. I will never forget when Alexis Romano hired me in June of 2011 in Syracuse, New York. That's what brought me to your team. So I want to be here. And Desiree, thank you for having the idea to put this whole collection of consciousness together. I believe we have at least 65 people that have bought tickets to the 12 weeks. So if you're on this Zoom tonight, I'm honored to be here with you. So many of you I've spent quality time with. I have a great topic for tonight called Persuasion Mastery. This is a topic I've covered hundreds and hundreds of times. I started studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, in the late 80s and early sobriety. And Tony Robbins at one point was an NLP student. And he was not, he never really was an endorser of NLP, but he was definitely a student of it. And early in my career, I started studying neuro-linguistic programming, which is persuasion mastery. And the #1 person you begin to persuade is yourself. Now, persuasion is not convincing. Persuasion is communicating. It's being able to collaborate. It's being able to, at times, share content, share perspective. And at times, you can create win-win situations. Also, there are people you won't be able to persuade, and they will not see your point of view, or they will not be interested in your product, services, benefits, and features. So I brought some tools here to tonight's Clubhouse, or to tonight's Zoom. I've been reading this book today, or the last few days. This is called Hidden Hands, Healing Words. So this is a very unique book, and it's written by Ray Cullis. I've had this book for over 10 years, and this book comes out of Edgar Cayce's foundation. Edgar Cayce was the world's greatest naturopathic healer. He is considered the father of tinctures, and before chiropractic was popular, Cayce was recommending people go to doctors of osteopathic and getting adjustments along with detox baths. And this book is really, really good because it gives you insight in how to use your hands to heal and how to use the words. So what's really good about that book is it gives you great insight in how to create affirmations and speak into existence reality that you are creating. I also created my own affirmation card deck, which many of you have right here. This is a card deck written in present tense. So I like to cut the deck and see what shows up. Now, this is very good. This is perfect for our Zoom tonight. I am able to attract synchronistic events to my reality consistently with ease. Now, the metaphor for this for you as a man or a woman of influence and affluence is to attract your reality a man or a woman or a husband and wife who have a vision, have clarity. They see, sense, and feel the business opportunity that you're presenting. They see the value of the products and services that you are offering, and they join you with ease. And so that persuasion is all unconscious, and that is what you're looking for. You're attracting people who feel what you feel, they believe what you believe, and they're in alignment with you, and they join a team and they see the culture. They don't require a lot of supervision, and they produce on command. That can happen. provided you learn to let go. You let go of struggle, trauma bonds, and panic patterns that you hold on to. Another book I brought to this right here. This is a very interesting story. This is called Persuasion Engineering. This is by the great John Laval and Richard Bandler. These are two New Jersey boys. Now, Richard Bandler is the pioneer who started NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Laval was his top student. Richard Bandler and I don't remember the other, but Bandler was one of the pioneers that started NLP, and then Laval was one of his best students. John Laval was in my team in a network marketing business in 1997. I met him at an event in Cancun, Mexico, or I met him at an event in Aruba, and he signed this book for me. This is a best-selling book, Persuasion Engineering. This was written in 1996. And then I brought this book for you. This is called Transcending Levels of Consciousness. This is the Stairway to Enlightenment. Now, that book will greatly assist you to understand how to let go and how to scale consciousness. In persuasion, what you begin to persuade is your left brain to join your right brain. If you have lived in an overwhelmed state a large percent of your life, if you're not good enough, if you've been traumatized, victimized, abused physically, emotionally, sexually, any multitude of situations, this leads to feelings of not being good enough. And then you join a business where the stakes are high, you could absolutely change your life. And you see people all around you, this is what your ego is telling you, everyone's succeeding but you, and it's gonna be your responsibility to let go and persuade your brain and your gut to come together so you're one with, so you're in your entire body, and your aura and your energy begins to transcend this low level energy that you've held on to called apathy, grief, anxiety, depression. So these feelings that you held on to of not being good enough, as you surround yourself with people of influence and affluence, and you've definitely done that by the law of alignment. The people that you're on this Zoom, and Desiree told me there was a great Super Saturday in Florida, and I was talking to Desiree about coming to Florida myself as soon as some of the mandates shift. I'm going to be coming to Florida and other places that I used to love to speak at. And persuasion mastery means that you become a master at persuading yourself to let go. You become a master at persuading yourself to let go of anxiety about selling. You become a master at persuading yourself that you're good enough to attract people who can produce results on command. I mean, you begin to persuade yourself to let go. It's going to be one of your best accomplishments that you'll accomplish in learning how to let go. That's separating your feelings from the events that shape them. And so when you're communicating with people in a business forum, in a situation where you're presenting products, services, benefits, and features, you want to be able to have flow in your conversation. Unfortunately, a large percent of society stops and starts because they go into fight or flight. And so this is a reaction. You persuade your body to let go of being right, being perfect, saying the right thing. You let go of making mistakes, getting in trouble. You let go of this. And as you do this, through the repetition and experience, your body begins to relax. For years, I would tell myself, I can't turn my brain off. I can't go to sleep at night. I used to require alcohol and medication. And now I don't require any of that. I was right before this Zoom, I laid down on my floor while Dylan was vacuuming my floor. I was laying over on the slide of the floor and I was meditating. He goes, "You want me to shut the door?" I go, "No, it's cool." I mean, so I've learned I persuaded myself to turn off the outer world, and I can go on command, I can rest. So I rested for 5 minutes, shut my eyes, and just had a great little just relaxation. It's not that difficult to do once you can let go of the brain that runs on its own. When you're able to let go of, I can't turn the noise off, I can't sleep. When you live this in that world, it really hinders your ability to rest, to dream, to be in a brainwave state that's conducive to attracting to reality people and situations that fulfill your cause, meaning, and purpose. So when you enter into conversation with people, your objective is to find out if they're a qualified buyer, if they have a problem you can resolve, if this is someone that you can collaborate with, if this is someone that you feel a warmth with. I mean, that's the objective. But when you encounter people who are hostile, unwelcome, unfriendly, you're not going to be persuading them. And once again, persuasion is communication. There's a flow to the communication. Some of you have experienced where you communicated with someone, they saw a presentation, and they joined your team. Well, they persuaded themselves because the value was great enough. They saw it. You're going to encounter other people who are skeptical, negative, overwhelmed, unresponsive, not looking for what you have. They tell you what they think you want to hear. They check out, they're gone. They tell you they're going to get back to you, and they don't. Well, this doesn't mean that your persuasion was not effective. It means that they weren't what you were looking for. And it's your responsibility to let go of those people without personalizing it and turning it into rejection, abandonment. I'm not good enough. Your ego will do everything in its power to stay in a place called familiar. That's what many people hold on to, not understanding there's a payoff. Now, back in 2017, I did an event with Vicky, and Vicky was Queen Kong at that event. And she was doing some of my techniques, and she was doing very effective. And she was asking people, "What's your payoff?" You remember this, Vicky? It was masterful. And Vicky was really facilitating at that event, and she was saying, "What's your payoff? What's your payoff?" Now, at that point, Vicky had crossed the bridge, and she's not the only person that I've taught that, but I've seen people in some of my live events, they cross the bridge and they start to understand what's going on in the collective consciousness of a room. Tara, you witnessed it. Desiree, you witnessed it. Because it's so clear once you see it. So what we hold on to are trauma bonds. That means that we're traumatized by events that create our personal reality that becomes our personality. We are victimized. We're abused. A multitude of situations create low self-esteem. And then when we do this, then we hold on to these feelings and we recreate events over and over, which creates a payoff. And the person that's emotionally addicted to a set of feelings typically has a challenge understanding that payoff is something they create to fulfill that feeling. Because the ego goes, "This is stupid. This is ridiculous. Why would I want to do this? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make fucking sense." Well, letting go is not about sense. Letting go is about letting go. And when you let go of being right, of recreating the situation of being a heartaholic and pressing the envelope and dishing the rock up the hill in sports term, and these situations that you hold on to and you learn to let go, the most important situations you persuade yourself to let go. It's not convincing that you reach a place, and you don't have to hit rock bottom to do it. But if you have been a noble struggler and you have had financial challenges and you have more liabilities than you have assets and you have a lot of debt, well, you're a product of the system. That's how the system is. And if you've stood at line at the pharmacies of the world, I mean, that's a product of the system. You know, if you're health conscious now, and it's also important you persuade your body to let go of the feelings you stuff that holds the weight in place. So when I coach my clients, I don't ever address weight loss. I address feelings that are stuffed, because once the feelings that are addressed that you stuff, then the organic situation happens. And then that persuasion becomes easy. And it's the same situation happens when you let go of being a struggler, a heartaholic. And when you tell yourself, "Oh, it's really difficult. I can't find any prospects. Everyone I talk to doesn't have any money. Everyone I see, everyone, always." We tend to use these terms, always and everyone. When you begin to be aware of your word choices, someone sent me a video to watch, and it was a newscaster on content that I found interesting. However, the newscaster took 5 minutes to get to the point, and then in the next 2 minutes, he said "kind of" 5 times. I mean, what? WTF? I mean, he said "kind of" 5 times. I mean, that's not persuasion. It was amazing to watch that. I mean, who was the producer of that show not catching this? This was amazing to watch this. That wasn't persuasion language. That was the language of doubt. And the newscaster was very uncompelling, and I lost interest. I never even saw what the woman wanted me to watch, because the person wasn't effective in his persuasion skills. In persuasion, you're able to hold an audience. You're able to keep people's attention. And this is why it's important that you use 5 to 15 words that end with periods and question marks. A large percent of society, when you ask them a question, they TAS, they tell a story. And then it's going to be your responsibility in persuasion to say, "That's not the question I ask you." When you're communicating, it's your responsibility to lead the prospect. When you're communicating, it's your responsibility to be able to ask the questions in sequence about the outcome that you seek. And if I want to sit in a booth, I'm going to ask the right person in that restaurant if I can sit in that booth. That would be the hostess or the manager. I'm not going to ask the busboy. That's the wrong person. Do you think it'd be okay if I sat down here? Or is it more effective to go, would it be possible for me to request that booth right over there? See, it's a different persuasion skill and a technique. There's a difference between talking and persuading. And in persuading, you lead the conversation. In leading the conversation, your objective is not to control the conversation. You lead the conversation by asking questions, and then you listen to answers and you hear what's meant. And then intuitively, you ask the questions that lead to the outcome you seek. And what you learn to do is you ask trial closing questions. And when you ask trial closing questions, then you can hear the reaction that people give you, or you can hear the response they give you. A reaction is usually an well. A response is a lot more responsive. They're a lot more responsive to you. And then there's an exchange of energy that's conducive to the outcome you're seeking. And the more you learn this and let go of telling yourself how difficult it is, how you can't find anyone, the economy, the gas prices, once you enter into that space, it's all over, because now you're in a mixed message. In a mixed message, there is no persuasion, it's begging, it's convincing. And in that mixed message, you're coming across very ineffective. And the more that you learn to let go of these feelings of inadequacy and making mistakes and getting in trouble, now you can be clear. I cover this with Cassie frequently and communicating with her. I've been coaching Cassie for a number of years, and I've watched her really, really turn the corner in her persuasion skills, and it's showing up in her life right now in possibilities for her and opportunities and where she's going to live, because the universe is rewarding her for her skills that she's now mastering. Rather than leaving it up to other people and being codependent, she's becoming a lot more independent. And that communication style that she's communicating, it has a lot more power in it. Power is not force. Many people are forced themselves to communicate, and they stop, and it's kinda and probably, and if I had to say, and this is very, very ineffective communication. Clarity comes from consciousness. Consciousness is understanding, it's knowing, it's being aware, it's being in the flow. This is a great book right here. Now, in chapter 3 of this book, right here, it says Transcending Apathy. This is a very, very important chapter. In this book right here, Hawkins breaks down, this is Dr. David Hawkins, one of my favorite books. He breaks down for the reader why very few people change, because very few people put the effort forth. There's a lot more to transformation than going to a seminar, going to an event, going to a rally, going to an event, listening to a podcast, listening to Zoom. Those are all components that put you in alignment. So that means that you're aligned with it, but the rest of it it's like athletics. It's practice in the gym. It's doing the same thing over and over. It's the repetition and experience. Very few people put in the repetition and experience because they wing it. They don't have time. They want it, but they're not committed to it. And if the word commitment is not in your communication, then if you're not committed and you're not communicating it, you're going to have challenge persuading people. Because if commitment isn't in your sentences, then how can you ask anyone else to commit? If you're commitment phobic, the word commit doesn't come out of your mouth. If you're not committed, you're interested. And when you're interested, then that's the mixed message that you bring. And in that relaxed energy that you learn to live in, that's called the flow, the hands-free zone. And in that space, any of you that ever been athletes before, or musicians or artists, when you're in that flow, it just absolutely lines up. I coached a woman yesterday who informed me that a gallery or a business contacted her to purchase a series of artwork for her that she produces. Now, she has chronically been an under asker for her value. So she would tend to sell her artwork for $1,000 when it would command $10,000. Now, I've coached her for 4 years, and I was very proud of the fact that she was able to ask for what she felt she deserved and fair market value. And the woman that wanted to buy it wanted to just her to send it in the mail, and she said, no, if you want to buy my painting, I suggest that I come to your location and I finish it there and I hang it there. if you're not willing to do that, then I'm not willing to sell you the piece of art. And the woman, so this was a big breakthrough for her, because my client would be too uncomfortable before she ever met me. And she'd be like, oh, I wouldn't want to offend her. I wouldn't want to blow the sale. I wouldn't want to screw up my pretty little pet. I mean, so she was able to let go of that energy, and she was able to get $10,000 for that. I mean, that was a major breakthrough for her. She had struggled with that for years until just this last year. She was able to ask what the free market bears. She was able to ask for her value. So you don't raise your prices, you raise your value. And when you are valuable, when you feel valuable, well, that transcends, that people begin to feel that. But when you're like, not valuable, and I'm just, hey, I'm over here. Hey, if you'd like to join up, if you'd like to sign up, it's cool. Just go over and fill out that link. And well, it doesn't happen like that. People require direction sometime. And it's going to be your responsibility to direct that flow of energy with people. And it's challenging for people because there's so much noise in their head about selling, branding, writing, influencing, affluencing, putting myself out there, and all the other content and noise that you've been conditioned to listen to about being selfish, not being good enough, and all these other stories and dialogue that you create in your head. When you begin to persuade yourself that you're good enough, that you're lovable, and you're capable, the energy shifts. And this is what happens when that happens. They show up. Parking spots show up. Airline tickets happen. You go out and you're treasure hunting, right, Cassie? And you find a brass button from the Revolutionary War, and you don't rely on just tripping over something. You use your intuition. You have a good idea where it is. I mean, just recently, I have this beautiful old door on this house I restored, and I had one of my assistants dismantle the lock, and he took it to the locksmith. My assistant came back and he was in very bombastic. Oh my God, I took it to the locksmith and there's no one that can fix this. Oh, he said, oh my God, you're gonna, and it's going to be so difficult because this is and I'm like, dude, stop. And so within minutes, I called a welder I had him call a welder I know, and for two in the door pieces, now it's perfect. And my assistant goes, well, how'd you know how to do that? I go, I just knew. And he goes, well, the locksmith said. I go, well, the difference between me and the locksmith is a stratosphere. I mean, he told me everything that he couldn't do. He didn't come up with a solution. My other assistant said, well, how'd you know that? I go, well, that's common sense to me. I mean, why not hire a welder to do what the locksmith said he's not willing to do? So all they had to do was weld a little piece of metal this big for $200, and now the lock is perfect. And so once again, this is my persuasion is I look for the solution. Many people focus on the problem. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people live. They're problem conscious, not solution conscious. And this is part of how it all comes together in your life. When you start to understand persuasion, you'll seldom be in conflict because your ego doesn't have to be right. When you come from persuasion, you realize that there are people you can't persuade and you walk away from them and you don't feel rejected or abandoned. When you're solution conscious and you focus on results, then you're able to see people that they don't see the interest in it. You're able to walk away easily and effortlessly. And then there's people that when you're in persuasion mastery, you start to feel it because you feel them, you feel their energy, you feel the love, you feel the connection, you feel the camaraderie, and it flows, it becomes smooth. It's as cool as the other side of the pillow. It's like ice in the veins. It all just starts to flow. It's the hands-free zone. It's the 25-foot jump shot, right, Cassie? Tara, it's that perfect dive. It's a number 10, isn't it? Just like this. It happens, and it doesn't happen by accident. That happens by manifestation. So the universe rewards you when you have paid your dues. The universe does not reward you because you're a good person. I mean, that's one component, but the universe will reward you when you've practiced the repetition and experience, and you do it over and over until it becomes a place called autosuggestion. Now, if I shoot a jump shot like this with my elbow out, there's a high probability it will clank. But when I shoot a jump shot with everything right here and that right this, and there's the release point, and that release point, see that release point is the let go point that releases the neurochemical dopamine. That's responding. But when you're reacting like this, and you come in and you're tense, and then it affects C1 and C2 in the upper cervical, and then your upper back and your low back where your money bone is, and you're like this, then you stop and start your conversation, and the neurochemicals that you release are cortisol and adrenaline. And that's what so many people get addicted to, is that low high of resentment, rejection, abandonment, and then apathy and grief. And so that's the cardio cocktail that a large percent of society lives in, recreating the same situation over and over to fulfill their disappointment, which is the payoff that so many people create. Now, when you understand that content I just shared, you're breaking through. When you understand that content, you're persuading yourself that I'm so done with this, I will not live like this. I will not be denied. And then that breakthrough year that you've been waiting to happen, it happens, because it starts happening right now. And the proof is they show up. And if you're on this content tonight and you're relating to this, I'm going to show you some of the books that I brought to. So this is a book called Healing Hands, Healing Words. That book will greatly assist you have an understanding how just to use your hands to heal yourself. And it's filled with great affirmations. I brought this little product to tonight's Facebook Live, to tonight's Zoom call. This is More Heart Than Talent Mindset cards. This is on my website at goldenmastermind.com. You can find this book on Edgar Casey's website, arebookstore.com. Transcending Levels of Consciousness. Chapter 3 is prescribed reading for everyone. Chapter 3 is some of the best content I've ever read in my career. And then this gem right here, Persuasion Mastery, John Laval and Richard Bandler. And the founders of NLP are two New Jersey boys, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, who in the late 70s come up with neuro-linguistic programming, Persuasion Mastery. If you're on tonight's Zoom and you've not accessed a free 20-minute coaching call with me, feel free to send me a Facebook message and I will reach out to, or I'll get right back to you. And I will do that within 24 hours. Desiree, I've left a little room for questions. If anyone would like to send you a question, I would be honored to answer a question for the next minute or so.
Awesome. Does anybody have a question? Please ask. You will receive an answer from our Master Jeff.
Feel free to ask a question. Can they also come off mute?
Sure. If anybody wants to come off mute, please ask a question.
Do your best to persuade yourself to come off mute.
Can you repost the card that you shared?
Yes. Here, I'll pull the card out. You mean the one on synchronicity? Here's the card deck. This is the deck right here. That's the deck. I'll have Dylan find the card. It's on synchronicity.
It started with, I am able to attract.
Yes, I'll get it for you. My assistant's sitting right here. I'll hold the card up. He'll find it. All right.
Thank you.
52 card decks, but it says, it really in essence is saying I attract to my reality synchronistic events and people to fulfill my cause, meaning, and purpose. That's essentially what that means. Anyone else have a question for me? Tonight is a perfect time. Okay, here it is. Can you see? Is it too glaring here?
It's too small. We can't see it. Can you read it?
Yes. It's who's asking the question?
Two of us now.
Right.
Fire Jewel and
Fire Jewel. I am able to attract synchronistic events to my reality consistently with ease. Oh,
thank you.
sorry, it's backwards. Anyone else have a question for me? Let me cut the deck. What I like to do with these cards is I like to just cut the deck.
Sounds good.
I am now able to operate in practical perfection and release my neurotic perfection and procrastination. One more?
One more.
Money flows to me easily and effortlessly. Great. That's a good one. Money flows to me easily and effortlessly. Kristen Collins, that could be you, baby. Money flowing to you easily and effortlessly. Right, Karen? Right, Lissa? I feel you, Lissa. Thank you. Anyone else have a question for me? And thank you for asking. Fire Jewel. Tyrone, my brother. I had the privilege of connecting with Tyrone. Krista, how are you this evening? Amanda, good to see you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Anyone else like to ask me a question this evening? Linda, good to see you. Stephanie, thank you for reaching out. Don Drury, my homeboy. Beth Dodd, Avery, Desiree, how are we this evening? And I do believe I see Alexis Dimitriolakos.
I'm here. Excellent content as always, Jeff. Thank you so much.
What did you receive tonight, Alexis, or anyone?
They show up. I mean, when you change your patterns and your beliefs, how they just all of a sudden show up, and your words, they just stick with us for life. I mean, we wake up with Jeffisms all day long and we repeat everything from the past 7-8 years that you've taught us. It's amazing.
Alexis, if you would have seen, I just want to convey to you this just simplicity, this beautiful door. This door is like such a piece of art. And I've restored this house in a 9-month period, and the lock was fucked up. I mean, pardon the French, but the lock was a disaster. It had been, and actually it had those speakeasy holes, and the guy that I had restored, he just absolutely traumatized the door. He broke the speakeasy hole. So my assistant went out and found a new one, and the hole was not a standard hole. So we found a 100-year-old speakeasy hole, but the lock was a disaster, and you just couldn't. Everything about the lock was wrong, but all it required was the right welder to weld a little piece this long. It changed the whole energy of the lock. I mean, the lock was just, that little piece was such a metaphor. So I went to the top. My assistant took the lock, took all the pieces and took it to the locksmith, because my assistant has never coached with me, even though one of my, now this is not Dylan, this is another assistant. He's been with me for 5 years as a driver. He's very good at certain things, but he's also very skeptical, and he's not completely in alignment with me. And of all people, he would be the one that would happen to. Oh my God, you have no idea how difficult it was. I took the locksmith said it'll never get fixed. And I go, well, that's the difference between him and me, Chief. Just deductive reasoning said, well, let's find a welder and let's have it custom made then. And so that's did we get it custom made, and now the lock is perfect. It was just a piece of metal that big. And if I didn't have the right if I didn't have the right hardware on the door, it changes the whole perspective of the door. Yep. That was like 3 feet from gold, and that's the front door. I mean, there's so many metaphors in that story, because that's the front fucking door. I mean, you can't have the wrong hardware on a beautiful door to enter your castle. I mean, it's just how it's just with so many metaphors. And so for you, don't let anyone tell you what you're not capable of. That's the metaphor. Don't let anyone rob you of your dream. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. Especially, oh my God, the gas prices are going to be so high, no one's going to buy from you. Are you kidding? I mean, that's just a story. That's what people will use to rob you of your dream. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. Look forward to our number 6, halfway home.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Alexis
Jeff.
and Alexis,
Thank you,
thank you
Jeff.
so much for putting this together. Vicky,
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.
for your
Good night.
assistance.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening, everyone.
Thank you.